Okay, so welcome guys. So this is a reinforcement on the topic on section 1 in our PRMLS, History of Medical Technology Profession. So guys, I hope you have read your modules. Then let's just give additional explanations, examples to our topic. So at the end of the lesson, perhaps you have read it in our objective. So we want to know the different milestones, the historical milestones in medical technology, who are the different personalities when it comes to the profession, and also what um, what was the progress of medical technology all over the world, including the US and also specifically in the Philippines. Of course, we want to get to know what is the status of medical technology in the Philippines. So class, so this is your, let's start with the global arena first. So class, I know this is not in your module, but let's just um, make a quick tour. So back then in the Stone Age era, in the Bronze Age, in the Iron Age, just let's see how did they handle diseases. Yan. So back then, guys, in the Stone Age era, they were believing about superstitions. That diseases were caused by superstitions, yan, or by evil spirits and witchcraft. So ganon sa Stone Age era. So how did they cure try to cure diseases? Through rituals and prayers and purgation, pagpupurga, sweating, bleeding, and diet restriction. So, ganun class. So, they don't have any concepts about microorganisms back then. Ganun, hindi pa nila alam. So, class, in the Stone Age era, so meron na tayong mga amputation. So, they start removing limbs. So, if there is wound, they will cut it off. Circumcision. Yan. So, among men, castration, class. So, the removal of genitals and trephining. So, when we say trephining, class, so in the photo, it shows that they are boring or drilling a hole inside the head of this man. So, to relieve pain. Ganyan. Or if there is a brain injury, something like that. And they also believe in herbal medicines. So class in the Bronze Age, same thing pa rin eh. So mysticism, magic, supernatural beliefs, there's still no concept of microorganisms or sabihin natin mga different lifestyle diseases that may have caused this one. And Iron Age class ito. So now they are finding out that diseases can be from the environment. So now they have started environmental sanitation. So now they have where they do number 1 and number 2, kung saan sila class tumatay at umiihi, it's now away from their homes. Yan. So there is environmental sanitation, they're cleaning up their environment because they are now associating environment with diseases. Yan. So they were draining swamps and fumigation already during the Iron Age. So guys, it is very innovative when Hippocrates came into the picture. So he is the first one in your module. So he is the father of medicine. He said, no, diseases are not from supernatural causes but natural causes. Sabi niya. Ano ba yung natural cause, ma'am, na sinasabi niya? Sabi niya, so he said about the theory of humors. So he said that the diseases are coming from the inside. So if there are imbalances of these 4 humors or 4 body fluids, sabi niya, so it can lead to disease. So if there's imbalances on blood, so sa photo, it points out to the heart, imbalances with phlegm. It is yung blue dito, it's related to the brain, yellow bile, liver daw, black bile, spleen, ganun. So, if there's something wrong with these ones, sabi niya, ma'am, bakit ganun, Father of Medicine? Eh, parang mali pa rin yung theory niya. So, at least it's not from supernatural causes, but natural causes. So, yun, it made a statement. And what else, class? During the Middle Ages, so the first laboratory test that they performed ever, so the oldest laboratory test is actually urinalysis or urine analysis. Urinalysis or urine testing. So yan guys ang mga pinakalumang test. So when we say urine analysis, right now what we do in the laboratory ngayon what we do in the laboratory is we check for physical characteristics, chemical characteristics, and microscopic characteristics. So when we say physical characteristics, so we observe the physical characteristic nga, guys. So the color, the pH, yan, the turbidity. So ano ba, turbid ba? Is it clear? Turbid, cloudy? Yan. So class, you can use that. How can we apply it, ma'am? Yan. So class, physical characteristics. So class, there are turbidity that sometimes when a person has urinary tract infection, class, their urine tends to be more turbid pag may urinary tract infection. Or baka na-try nyo na to. At class, you will notice if you have urinary tract infection, the smell of urine is very ammoniacal. Class, mapanghe. Bago pa lang siya. Class, urine becomes ammoniacal, pumapanghi lang siya, class. Once the bacteria is starting to replicate inside the urine. Yan. So, and it produces more ammonia. So, if the urine was left standing, that's the time that it will become ammoniacal. But class, if it's freshly withdrawn, so fresh kang umihi, class, it should have no smell. But in cases of urinary tract infection, your urine is extra smelly, and so there is pain when you pee also, and also your urine is very turbid. So ganyan, pwede nating i-apply sa buhay natin, class. What I love about medical laboratory science is you can apply it in your real life. So class, in medical laboratory science, we analyze urine, we analyze stool. So class, I suggest to you, observe your urine, observe your stool. Yan. Check if there is blood, because if there is blood, except during menstruation, those are signs of abnormalities, diba? So look at them. Yan. So back then, guys, so they were looking at urine, they were tasting, class, urine, they were tasting it. Yan. So it's true, class, that when you have diabetes mellitus, yan, if you have high blood sugar, so class, your urine becomes sweet. Yan. In the laboratory, class, we don't taste urine. So back then, they did it. What else? Now, Marcello Malfigi, so father of modern anatomic pathology. So an example of anatomic pathology, class, is autopsy. Ganyan. So yan, he pioneered checking the pathology of the body. So class, when we say pathology means study of diseases. So class, our boss are the head of the clinical laboratory, are pathologists. And there are two types of pathologists, anatomic pathologists and clinical pathologists. Yan. So usually, the one who does autopsy are anatomic pathologists, guys. Yan. Ma'am, do medtechs assist or perform autopsies? Actually, no, guys, but we can assist. Yeah. But usually, so some medical technologists, that's their job. Yeah. But if you're a typical method medical technologies, we're not really doing autopsy. Yeah, I've never tried it, guys. So, yeah, next class, Jean-Baptiste von Helmont. So, gravimetric testing of urine specimen. So, gravimetric testing of urine specimen. So, when we say gravimetric testing, so it relates to the amount of sediments inside the urine. Because the more sediments that a urine have, it tends to settle at the bottom due to gravity. So, so here, they are quantitating the amount of sediments in the urine, and perhaps they're correlating that the more sediments in the urine, there is some kind of disease. But class, that's true. Yan. So class, the one who made our first compound microscope, so they were the pioneer of the compound microscope and the telescope, is Hans Zacharias Janssen. So class, meet our compound microscope. So that's going to be your best friend. And I want you to start memorizing the parts of your microscope, okay? Especially for our freshmen. So memorize the parts of a compound microscope, specifically binocular compound microscope. Yan. So you can just plug it in, yan, and it has its own light source. Perhaps yung ginagamit nyo sa STEM class is itatapat nyo pa sa ilaw. Or perhaps some of you haven't even touched or seen a microscope. So one time, I'll go to school and video a microscope. So how does a microscope magnify an image? What is the principle of a microscope? Class, a microscope has the ability to magnify image because it contains two lenses. Two series of lenses. Yan, yung lenses na yan. So pag pinagpatong mo tong lens na to, ganyan, it will magnify the image. So ma'am, saan po yung lens ng microscope? So your first lens is here. So in the eyepiece or in the ocular, that's your first lens. Yan. And the next lens class here in the objectives. Yan. So we have 3 objectives. But you can only use one objectives at a time. You can only use one objective at a time. So first is, once you're going to look at the microscope and choose one objective, so it will magnify the image. So bali class, we have 4 objectives. 4 objectives. So we have a scanning power objective, a low power objective, a high power objective, and an oil power objectives. Yan. So, 4 yung objectives natin but you can only use one objective at a time. So, ganun. Yan. So, 2 ang lens ng microscope natin, class. So, now we have Anton van Leeuwenhoek. Yan, class. I've been searching the spelling of Leeuwenhoek. Yan. Ako, paiba-iba rin yung Anton, yung Leeuwenhoek. But class, as long as you have a reference, I will consider it because someone messaged me, ma'am, what's the spelling of Anton van Leeuwenhoek? So, as long as you have a reference, then I'll consider it. Walang problema. So, Anton van Leeuwenhoek class. So, he is the father of microscopy. Yan. But class, you know, he's not a scientist by profession. So, he is a textile merchant. Textile merchant. So, class, if you're familiar with textile, meron class na thread count. We have this term as thread count. They say the higher the thread count is the more luxurious the bedding is. Ganyan yung depende sa thread count. Class, so he used the microscope to count the threads at first. But due to his curiosity, sabi niya, he was the first to see and describe bacteria, yeast plants. Yan. In a swamp water or pond water. Kumuha siya ng pond water, ayun, finocus niya kung ano nakita niya, protozoa, and glass blood cells. Yan, he's the father of microscopy, Anton van Leeuwenhoek. And class now, class, we're progressing. So gone are the beliefs of superstition, but now they're trying to use the microscope. So class, the use of microscope is incredible because they can now see things that cannot be seen in the naked eye, which can only seen by a microscope. So now, Robert Hooke class, he is the one who discovered cells. Yan, cells. So how did he discover cells? So he acquired a piece of cork. And class, upon acquiring a piece of cork, so dito sa image na to, itong binibilgan ko dito, so ganun yung itsura. And class, Robert Hooke lives in a monastery. He's a monk. And in the monastery class, so there are compartments or rooms there called cells. Yan, Latin cella, cells. So, he called these compartments a cell. So, guys, doon nabuo ang word na cell. And class, you know, cells are very important. So, class, please review what are the parts of cells, yung mga nucleus, mitochondria, diba? Endoplasmic reticulum. Class, notice, itong natin, GIF na red blood cells. Isn't it that cell have nucleus? And notice, class, your red blood cell, it does not have nucleus. A mature red blood cell, class, do not have a nucleus. Class, those who don't know yet what a red blood cell is, so this red blood cell are the cells that carries oxygen, that delivers oxygen among your tissues. Yan. So, class, saan na-produce ang red blood cell? Mga tanong ko nga sa mga natin. Where is blood produced? So, class, ang blood natin, one cellular component of blood is red blood cells. Class, saan kaya galing ang blood natin? Yan. So, homework na yan, ha? So, we have two different cell, animal cell and plant cell. Ma'am, saan yung human dyan? Yan, animal cell tayo. So, class, next we have Hermann von Felling. So, one day, hopefully, is we can be in the laboratory together. And class, Felling's one common substance or reagent that we use in the laboratory is Felling's solution. So, Felling's solution, class, is a reagent that is used to detect reducing sugars. It's a reagent which detects reducing sugar. So, class, once a substance is a reducing sugar and you add Felling solution, the positive result is a reddish precipitate. So, look at the slide. So, we have glucose and fructose. So, once you add von Felling's reagent, it will have a red precipitate. Yan. Pag nasabi natin precipitate, class, there's clumping that settles at the bottom of the tube. So, reddish precipitate. So, notice saccharose. So, aside from saccharose, sucrose. Class, they are non-reducing sugar. So, once you add von Felling solution, it will remain blue. It remained blue. So, a negative result is blue, a positive result is reddish precipitate. So, von Felling discovered the Felling's solution. So, class, these people were adding von Fellings in the urine. Yan, to detect glucose, fructose, and lactose in urine. So, it's very non-specific. Yan. Okay. Class, so we have three proponents of cell theory, but we will focus on Rudolf Virchow. So, Rudolf Virchow, magsimula muna kay Schleiden and Schwann. So, Matthias Schleiden and Theodor Schwann, class. So, the two of them said that plants are made of cells, animals are made of cells. Yan. So, that's what they said. So, kay Schleiden and Schwann. But Rudolf Virchow said something incredible. Sabi niya, all cells came from pre-existing cells. What does that mean? All cells came from pre-existing cells, or all cells came from a parent cell. Other term, all cells came from an ancestral cell. So, ibig sabihin, class, that all cells had a parent. So, walang cell, class, na nanggaling sa bula. Like you came from your parents. Yan. The cell of your parents, the cell from your parents, the egg cell and the sperm cell will eventually become you. Ganyan. So, no one, kasi diba, parang inaasar tayo mga bata natin na, tumubo lang daw tayo sa kangkungan, ganyan. So, all cells came from pre-existing cells. Kasi class, back then, there was a prevailing belief that some living things came from non-living things. Ang belief na yun is abiogenesis. For example daw kasi, when you leave meat, pag nag-iwan ka daw ng meat, class, so it will produce maggots and flies. So they didn't know that it just went to that place, but that's what their belief is. But through Rudolf Virchow, he said that there is biogenesis, that living cells can only arise from pre-existing cells. So living cells cannot come from non-living things. Yan. Napaka ano nun, nung panahon niya, that's a breakthrough of knowledge. Now, ito na naman another breakthrough in 1861. So now we're discovering class microorganisms, class bacteria. So bacteria cannot be seen by your naked eye. And class Louis Pasteur said that microorganisms are everywhere. So it's in the air, it's in the land, ganyan. So he offered a proof of biogenesis by using an S-shaped curved flask in his experiment. He proved that air can contaminate a sterile solution, but air itself does not produce microbes. Yan. So air can deliver or bring or carry microorganisms. Ganyan. So class yan, he said that microorganisms are brought by the air. It's everywhere. So, class, he's the father of modern bacteriology. Sobrang idol talaga tong mga to. And he discovered aseptic technique or disinfection and pasteurization. Class, I'll give you a homework. Differentiate aseptic technique to disinfection. Because we can always hear disinfection, but I don't think you always hear aseptic technique. Please research, define nyo tong mga to. Aseptic technique, disinfection, and pasteurization. And what's good is it's just one click away. So, paki-search ha. Now, class, we have Robert Koch. Yan. So, Louis Pasteur is all about microorganisms, specifically bacteria. Now we have Koch. So Robert Koch now, class, he correlated bacteria or microorganisms to diseases. Yan. So if Hippocrates said diseases are from natural causes, now Robert Koch said diseases are from microorganisms. Yan. So what he did is he made an experiment. So he kumuha siya ng sick animal, like a sick rabbit or a sick rat, like in our slide. Then, so he inoculated it. So he isolated the microorganism and grew it in a agar plate. So, kinulture niya, class. So, agar plate is where we culture microorganism. When we say culture, where we grow it. Yan. So, kumuha siya ng dead na animal na may bacteria doon. Ginrow niya yung microorganisms, class, and identified the microorganisms. Then again, class, he inoculated another healthy animal with a microorganism and inoculated the microorganism to another plate. So, dapat, he postulated that it should be the same microorganism. Parang ganon. But class, it's not perfect. Sabi natin, Koch's postulate. A pathogen must be present in every case of disease. Yan. He assumes that all diseases are caused by a microorganism. True ba yun, class? Heart disease. Galing ba yun sa microorganism? Lung cancer, galing ba yun sa microorganism? Down syndrome, galing ba yun sa microorganism? So, may limitation. Pero kasi 1876 pa lang to. The disease must be isolated from the disease host and grown in pure culture. The pathogen from the pure culture must cause the same disease when it is inoculated into a healthy, susceptible laboratory animal. So, class, kung ano yung nakuha niya dun sa sick na animal na bacteria, dapat yun rin yung makikita niya na bacteria kung ibibigay niya yung bacteria ngayon sa another healthy animal, sa madaling salita. Kasi nandito ba ako? Basta, ganon. That bacteria causes diseases. Madaling salita. So, class, here, yan, in this image, class. So, this is a child who was stricken with smallpox. So, back then, class, there was a smallpox pandemic. Yan. So, it has killed so many civilizations. Class, ganun, pinag-uusapan ko lang yung mga pandemic in my subjects, and now we are in the middle of a pandemic. Sometimes I cannot believe it, actually. So here we have a smallpox pandemic. Yan, an epidemic. Sa sobrang tagal kasi ng smallpox sa mundo, class. Yan, basta may smallpox na outbreak, class. So, it has affected millions of people around the world. Class, in one way, so class, are you hearing smallpox right now? May chickenpox. May smallpox pa. May pag-isapan natin. So, back then, class, the Chinese developed the practice of variolation. So, there's no vaccination yet. So, what they did, class, in the act of variolation, so they will scrape a crust of the smallpox, crush it, yan, using mortar and pestle, and they will sniff it. Parang parang cocaine glass. So, they will get a crust of a smallpox lesion, they will crush it, and they will sniff it. Ganun. So, ganun yung variolation dati. Class, syempre mali yun. Class, that's not really effective way of immunization. So, effective ang vaccine, pero back then, they were using variolation. They're sniffing the crust of smallpox lesion. Yan, kadiri. But guys, thanks to Edward Jenner, isa na naman sa mga idol ko, class. So, he is the father of immunology. So, ang marami niyo ng father na natututunan. So, he's the father of immunology. And, class, he invented the first smallpox vaccine. Class, sobrang galing. He invented the first smallpox vaccine. Class, paano niya ginawa to? Sabi niya, he realized that milkmaids who was infected with cowpox. Sabi niya, yung mga milkmaids, ibig sabihin, the women who were getting milk from cows, they are infected with cowpox. But it's a milder form. Yan. You won't die in cowpox. They cannot be infected with smallpox. Class. So here in this image, that is Edward Jenner. So he is getting so sobrang unethical nito. Class, pinag-experimentohan niya ang isang bata, which is you cannot do anymore unless there is parent consent. So, kumuha siya, class, ng lesion ng smallpox galing sa bata, class. Tapos, binigay niya sa isang milkmaid. And he noticed that milkmaids are actually immune to smallpox. Those who had cowpox, yung mga milkmaids na nagkaroon ng cowpox, class, they cannot be infected by smallpox. Yan. So, class, it's very scandalous, class, kasi what Edward Jenner is proposing is let's infect people with cowpox so that they cannot have smallpox. Yan. So, paano mo i-convince? So, it's very difficult to convince other people na, you're going to infect me with the disease so that I will not get another disease. Parang ganon. So that's how the concept of vaccine started. So, galing ni Edward Jenner, no? So, cowpox is a mild form of pox. Yan. So, if you have cowpox, eventually, ang niya, you make antibodies or your body becomes stronger against smallpox. Galing, no? So, class, through the vaccine of Edward Jenner, congratulations, this 2020 class, you will never have smallpox. Yan. So, COVID-19 lang problema natin ng 2020. In class, so one of the successes of WHO is the smallpox eradication. So in October 26, 1979, class favorite number yan ng teacher ko dati. Grabe, pinapamemorize niya sa amin yan. In October 26, 1979, that's the day when there is no smallpox around the world. Yan. So there's no smallpox, wala na, since 1979. So class, I was thinking that naka-eradicate sila ng isang sakit in 1979. Why cannot we eradicate, measles? Why cannot we eradicate polio? We have these vaccines, diba? But there are, nagkakaroon ng mga anti-vaxxers. Many people are doubting science now. Many people are afraid to get vaccinated. That's why marami pa rin tayong sakit na preventable dahil sa vaccine. Well, so it's really sad na biglang naririnig ko that there are rising case of measles, rising case of polio because people are forgetting the vaccine because of maraming issue dahil sa dengue siya, ganyan. Now, class, we have, grabe to, Alexander Fleming, isa sa mga idol naman. You know, class, every time a surgery happens, we need antibiotics. Class, magpapabunot ka lang, we need antibiotics. Yan. Antibiotics, class, kills bacteria. Ha? So, ang antibiotic pang bacteria lang siya. Not for virus, not for parasite. So, class, where did our first antibiotic come from? So, our first antibiotic is penicillin. Your penicillin kills bacteria. Your penicillin is from a fungi, class, which is Penicillium notatum. Penicillium notatum. So that is the scientific name. Class, yan ang scientific name ng fungi. Penicillium notatum. So if you notice, ganito magsulat ng ganito pag nagsulat kayo ng all caps or big letters, lahat mali. So, pag magsusulat po ng scientific name, so, big letter class sa genus, tapos yung, second name, yung sa species niya, small letter. So, example, Staphylococcus aureus. So, big yung Staphylococcus, big S, and aureus is small a. Escherichia coli. So, big letter yung E, Escherichia, small letter yung coli, letter C. Yan. Yan na. Pag scientific name. So, parang, ano ba bang mga scientific name natin? Like, sa, marijuana, cannabis sativa. So, big letter C, small letter S. Cannabis sativa. Tama ba ako? Yan. Tama naman ata. So, class, the discovery of antibiotic changed the face of therapeutic medicine. It has saved millions of lives. So, because every time that you have a wound that is infected, especially during the war, sobrang helpful yan ng antibiotic. So, your fungi from Penicillium notatum, class, killed bacteria. Ganyan. So, si Alexander Fleming, class, so what he did is he had a culture of Staphylococcus aureus. So, Staphylococcus aureus bacteria, iniwan niya, class. And eventually, class, eventually, when he came back for his culture, fungi were starting to grow in the culture as well, and it was killing the bacteria. Yan, doon niya na-discover si Penicillium notatum, which produces penicillin. Galing, no, guys? So, class, we cannot do open heart surgery. We cannot do any surgeries for that matter, or hindi tayo pwede bumunot ng ngipin kung walang antibiotics. So, thank you, Alexander Fleming. Palakpakan natin si Alexander Fleming. Next class, we have Paul Ehrlich. So, Paul Ehrlich discovered the cure for syphilis. Yan. Paki-double check yung spelling, ha? Single L lang. So, he discovered the cure of syphilis. Class, syphilis is a sexually transmitted disease caused by Treponema pallidum. Wait, tayo na. Treponema. May blackboard ako dito, class, kasi ang hirap ilabas. Treponema pallidum. Anyway, yan, search nyo nga, what bacteria causes syphilis? Treponema pallidum. So, class, he discovered magic bullet, salvarsan, also called as magic bullet, because class, back then, so during the war, the soldiers will rest and they will go to communities, and apparently they will have sex with the women in the community, and they will spread syphilis. So many soldiers suffered syphilis. And gladly, Paul Ehrlich discovered salvarsan. But now, class, the best way to treat syphilis is penicillin. So, Ito class. So this is a chancre. So in the lip of this guy, so he has syphilis. And one of the symptoms of syphilis is a chancre. Yan. Ang spelling class ng chancre, C-H-A-N-C-R-E. Yan. A painless chancre. So, but now we use syphilis, penicillin. Next class, M. Ruth Williams. So, she found, so she's an historian who noted that medical technology began during the medieval period. Who else? Vivian Herrick. So, Vivian Herrick is a historian who discovered ancient writings about intestinal parasites such as Tinea and Ascaris. So class Tinea, you can get this class from eating pigs and beef which are not well cooked and they have Tinea parasite. Yan. So Tinea is found in the muscles of pigs and beef. So, class, kung nagsasamgipsal kayo at apparently may parasite to, tapos hindi nyo niluto ng maigi, you can have teniasis. Yan. So, tenia is the parasite, teniasis is the disease. So, class, Ascaris or Ascaris lumbricoides. So, these are yung, class, if you have watched yung may mga uod sa tiyan na ang lalaki na parang pasta. So, those are Ascaris lumbricoides. So, Ascaris lumbricoides or Ascariasis is a soil-transmitted disease. So, example, class, yung mga bata na nagpa-play sa soil, tapos hindi naghugas ng kamay, or farmers, hindi naghugas ng kamay, so they can get ascaris under their nails. So, when they eat it, yan, malulunok nila. Ganyan. So, anything that is contaminated with soil. So, example, sa samgipsal na naman, lettuce class. So, if you don't wash your lettuce and there are soil remnants in your lettuce, in your potatoes, and you did not clean it well, you can have ascaris. Yan. Ma'am, paano napunta sa soil itong ascaris? So, actually, ascaris came from people. So, a person who has ascaris will have ascaris eggs on their stool. And if they are pooping in soil, yung mga walang toilet class, pwedeng pumunta yung ascaris egg sa soil. And class, so we have Dr. William Burdo Sanderson. So, pwede niyong basahin na lang. So, initiated the use of laboratory animals as part of the means to diagnose diseases. So, experimented on animals. Class, I know magagamit yung PETA doon, but experimentation on animals has been very vital in medicine. Class, yung may mga kilala kong vet students. Class, you know, vet students, they were experimenting on cadavers of horses, ganun, malaki yung mga pinapatay nila, of pigs, ganun, for science. Dr. William Welsh, so to learn the parts of the animals, so yun, may mga bumibili sila ng mga kabayo, kaya pang mahal siguro ng vet med. So Dr. William H. Welsh, so he is the father of American pathology, so watch out for the fathers, yung mga father na yun, ha? Class Wells, ito isa sa mga lagi nating ginagamit, na source. If you want me to give you a copy of this one. So, Henry's Clinical Diagnosis and Management by Laboratory Methods by McPherson and Pincus. So, the first edition started in 1908. Yan. So, ngayon, 22nd edition na tayo. So that's a common reference used in medical laboratory science. Class, here we have George Papanicolaou. So he was Papanicolaou. Yan. Sabihin nyo nga, George Papanicolaou. So class, he discovered pap smear and pap test. Pap smear, pap test. So pap smear and pap test. Class, it is used to screen malignancy in the cervix. So they will open up the cervix, the vagina, the cervix class. They will acquire cells and they will stain the cells using pap stain. So ganun ang pap test. We use pap smear or pap. In the pap test, we use a pap stain class. Stain, pangpakulay. Yan. To detect malignancy in the cervix class. They said that pap test only has 10% sensitivity in identifying HPV, human papilloma virus. Class, HPV, human papilloma virus can lead to cervical cancer. So class, 90% way of preventing cervical cancer caused by human papilloma virus is through HPV vaccine. Yan. So mga ladies, you know, sinong pinaka-prone magkaroon ng HPV virus? You know, women who have multiple sexual partners, men who have multiple sexual partners. Yun. Kasi yung mahirap doon, pwede ka, kahit you use condom, pero if you have multiple sexual partners, you are prone to HPV. That's why I'm telling you right now, guys, that if you could get yourself a vaccine for HPV, then that's good. Class mid-1800s, so laboratory test for the detection of tuberculosis. So we now test for TB. So tuberculosis is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Class, start nyo nang mag-practice, mag-memorize ng mga scientific name ng mga bacteria. So tuberculosis, paki-google na lang is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So cholera. So cholera is caused by Vibrio cholerae. Typhoid is caused by Salmonella typhi. Diphtheria. Ano ba nag-cause ng diphtheria? Corynebacterium diphtheriae. Yan. So, guys, paki-search. What are the causative agents of tuberculosis, cholera, typhoid, and diphtheria? Corynebacterium diphtheriae. Yan, sa diphtheria. So, class, first clinical laboratory in the US is in the University of Michigan Hospital. Yeah. So, class, pakibasa na lang itong mga to. So, in 1922, it's in your module. In 1922, American Society of Clinical Pathologists was organized. Class, if you want to go in the US, you can take the ASCP examination. You can take the ASCP examination. So if you have that licensure, yan, they will accept your degree. Yan. So my friends yun class, they took that ASCP. Mag-e-exam ka. Tapos yun, you can go to the US. Class, University of Minnesota is credited with the first degree program of medical technology. So in the University of Minnesota, a new organization was formed, the American Society of Clinical Laboratory Technicians, later renamed as American Society of Medical Technologists. Plus, there is also an ASMT exam, but I think ASCP is enough. So class, in your notes, so we have gas liquid chromatography, pakibasa na lang kung sino ang nag-discover. So class, gas liquid chromatography, immunoelectrophoresis, continuous flow automatic analyzer. Class, these are the different machines that we use to measure a substance or identify a substance. Ganun. Hindi ko na lang muna i-elaborate. Yan. Pero I just want you to be familiar na as a medical laboratory scientist, actually pwede natin gamitin itong mga to. Gas liquid chromatography, immunoelectrophoresis, continuous flow automatic analyzer. Yan. Sa notes nyo, to be familiar. And class, they discovered as well major histocompatibility complex. Class, alam nyo ba that if there is organ donation that's going to happen, not only they will test the compatibility of your blood type pag organ donation, but they will also test for HLA compatibility, yung major histocompatibility complex. So, dapat HLA compatible rin ang organ. Kung hindi class, kung hindi compatible kasi, yung katawan mo, it will attack the new organ. So, example class, kung nabalitaan nyo, isn't it that Selena Gomez, due to lupus class, her kidney was starting to die. Yan. So she was in need of kidney transplant. So gladly, luckily, her best friend volunteered to be the kidney donor, and aside from that class, they are compatible. Yan. So their kidneys are compatible through blood typing and HLA compatibility. So, ayun, okay naman si Selena Gomez. What else, class? We have Hybridoma Technology. So, this Hybridoma Technology gave the discovery of tumor markers. Class, through blood tests, blood test, we can detect for the presence of these tumor markers. So, example, if you want to know if you are prone to breast cancer, pwede kang magpa-test class ng CA125 test. Ang mga price class nitong mga tumor markers, I think 1,500. So, magpapakuha ka ng dugo mo, tapos magpapatest ka ng tumor markers. You have to go to specialized laboratories. Example, sa mga lalaki naman, ang isa sa mga common na pinapatest sa mga lalaki is prostate cancer. So, magpapatest ka ng PSA. Ang PSA, ibig sabihin niya is prostate-specific antigen. Yan. So, kung mataas ang PSA mo, yun, pwedeng it points to prostate cancer. Ganun. Ano ba sa board exam, guys? Yan. So, class, you're almost done. We're in the Philippine setting. Mabilis lang to. So, very simple lang. So, back then, class, in World War II, so the US, in World War II, may US bases sa Leyte. And in those US bases, class, so there were healthcare team who cures wounded soldiers and civilians. So, the first clinical laboratory in the Philippines is in 208 Quiricada Street, Santa Cruz, Manila. Yun yung unang clinical lab sa Pilipinas. So, it is from, kanino galing? So, pinamana sa Filipino. Kanino galing? Sa 6th Infantry Division of the U.S. Army. So, they were the one who gave it. So, the first clinical laboratory is now called Manila Public Health Laboratory. Yan, Manila Public Health Laboratory. So, yan, nasa photo, Public Health Laboratory. And class, so, pinamana nung 6th Infantry Division. So, they gave it to Dr. Alfredo Pio de Roda. So, he was the first sabihin natin, supervisor or director of the laboratory in October 1, 1945 with the assistance of Dr. Mariano Icasiano. Yan. So, Dr. Alfredo Pio de Roda was the first one who handled Manila Public Health Laboratory. Yan. So, next person, meron pa sa module nyo, pakibasa na lang ha. But here we have Dr. Prudencia Santa Ana. So, she made the first training program for high school students for them to be medical, to train them as medical technologists, si Dr. Prudencia Santa Ana. So, so dati wala pang college degree. So, nagtitrain lang siya ng mga high school students. And class, in 1954, now we have a Bachelor of Science in Medical Technology in PUC, Philippine Union College, and Manila Sanitarium. Yan. So, yun na yung mga bagong names nila. So, in 1954. So, class, in the medical technology is covered by a law. Para makapractice tayo sa Pilipinas, we are protected by the law and we have a responsibility. So, we have ethical responsibility. So, if you're going to become a medical technologist, you are covered by this law, Republic Act 5527. Huwag niyong kakalimutan yan, RA 5527. So, yan ang batas para sa mga medtech. So, the title of the law is the Philippine Medical Technology Act of 1969. So, class, in 1969, they made this law, class, panahon pa ni Marcos. And, ang tagal na. So, ibig sabihin, class, there's a need to amend this, to improve on this. Yan. Here, there is now 3 revisions. Makikita nyo. Na-revise naman siya, pero noong 1978, so RA 6132, PD 498, and PD 1534. Class, minimemorize rin yung tatlong yan, ha? So, yan yung mga revisions niya, yung mga improvements niya. So, there is a need na we need to update pa yung RA 5527, just like we don't have hazard pay. Yan. There's no basic minimum salary stated in the law. So, yun yung mga kailangan natin, diba? So class, in process, we have a House Bill number 4742. So they're trying to improve on RA 5527. So kailangan pa nating i-push to para class tumaas ang mga sweldo ng mga medical technologists. So class, finally, we have PAMET. Yan. So perhaps narinig niyo na to sa commercial ng Safeguard. So Philippine Association of Medical Technologists. So it was founded by Mr. Crisanto Almario in 1963. Yan. So class, these are organizations so far which gives the seminars, which pushes the improvement of RA 5527. Sana class, diba? Ang tagal-tagal na, 2020 na, wala pa rin asenso sa RA 5527 para mapaigting ang mga karapatan ng mga medtech sa Pilipinas. Yan. So, this is the logo. So, ito yung mga class meaning ng logo. Circle symbolizes continuous involvement where practice and education must always be integrated. Triangle, trilogy of love, respect, and integrity. Class, you know, one of my favorite words is integrity. Diba? Sabi ko na to, diba? Who are you when no one's looking? What is your character when no one's looking? You know, class, medical technology sometimes is a lonely job. Sometimes you just do things on your own. Walang kasama. So, ayun, pag magkakamali ka ba, uulitin mo ba? Or since wala namang nakatingin, diba? I-release mo na lang yung result. Yan. You know, my teacher said in college back then, so if you're planning to do something wrong, then just don't do it anyway. Diba? Kung mali rin naman yung gagawin mo, wag mo na lang gawin. Diba? So, ganun. You know, class, kwento lang sa inyo. Nababali-balitaan ko that some laboratories, since if you heard, PCR is one of the tests so that's the swab test for identifying COVID-19. You know, I'm hearing laboratories who are changing the dates of their PCR results. So they are paid. So to extend the dates, because your PCR test has validity. I think 14-day validity lang yan. So some people, instead of having it retested, pinapapalit na lang yung date so it remains valid. So, mga ganun, may mga nagpapabayad, class na medical technologist. You know, right now, laboratory is a booming industry because everyone needs PCR testing, everyone needs rapid testing. And we need more laboratories who's not focused with only profiting, but delivering quality laboratory services. Class, diba? Naku, maraming yumayaman na laboratory ngayon, class. Yan, so pakibasa na lang yan. And it's the end of the section. Class, thank you for being with me. Thank you for listening. I hope you have learned something. And I'll see you again soon. Stop recording.